The bell hadn't even finished ringing when the hallway turned into a stage. Phones rose like silver weeds. Blake walked the center line with a grin that begged for a crowd. He wanted a clip, not a class. He wanted easy power. He picked the new black girl in a plain white shirt because quiet looks like permission to people who mistake noise for strength. He called her "Hey Rookie" like she was a game. Laughter tilted toward him. He leaned in, liking the smell of fear that wasn't his. Hook. If you have ever felt a room pick a side against you, you know the sting under the skin. The fear is not the hit. It's the idea that no one will help. That belief freezes the body. Cameras love that moment. Blake shoved her backpack. No reaction. He tugged her hair. She steadied her breath, shoulders set. The crowd wanted tears. She gave them eye contact. He needed a bigger note. His knee flashed up. A small pop. A red line touching her lip, and then a silence that hurt worse than the sting. The phones drank it in. Some kids laughed because laughter felt safer than conscience. That's insecurity's favorite trick. If it's happening to her, it won't happen to me. She didn't cry. She wiped the blood with the back of her hand and looked straight at him. The look wasn't heat. It was clarity. Curiosity crawled across the floor. Who stands up like that with everyone watching? Who refuses the script? Blake's smile faltered. He scanned faces for approval and found glass screens staring back, not friends. Her voice came low and level. Too bad your knee is weaker than your mouth. A ripple moved through the circle. Fear migrated, quiet but real. The crowd felt it first. The story had flipped. The boy with the followers looked small next to the girl with control. Interest hooked hard. Everyone leaned in to see if she would break or if he would. Issues hung in the air. Bias dressed up as jokes. Cruelty filmed like sport. Grown-ups too far away. She stood still so the truth could be measured. He fidgeted so the lie could keep moving. Excitement sparked like static on a sweater. A twist was coming. The cameras kept rolling, hungry for the next frame. She gave them one more sentence just for the record. Make sure your video has sound. And in that hush, you could hear his pride trying to breathe. Confirmation arrived without sirens. The king wanted a laugh track. He got a witness. The hallway felt the turn, the way a room feels a storm door open. Interest sharpened into attention. Fear moved from her to him, and it wore his name well. He glanced toward the exit like it might jump closer if he stared. No one moved to help him fill the silence. Everyone could hear the math of the moment. Her calm plus his cruelty equaled truth. And truth, once filmed, doesn't ask permission to travel. It walks, it multiplies. It lands on the phones, then on the feeds, then on the minds that tell themselves they would have done better. The scene planted a seed in every watcher. Next time, choose a side before the hit. Insecurity tried to whisper excuses. Curiosity told it to hush. The crowd felt the message settle into their shoulders like a weight they were meant to carry. The hallway's noise returned as a murmur, not a roar. That was the first change, and everyone heard it. He wanted the clip he could control. He made a record he could not. The lights hummed. A door clicked. And the camera, still hungry, waited for the next frame that would show who people really were when the joke ended and the truth stayed. The room wanted to breathe again and could not. It had learned the cost of applause. It had learned the price of silence. It had learned that a single look can rearrange a crowd. The moment left the hallway a hard question. What happens when a target refuses to kneel? The answer stood there, calm and steady. Yes, after the hit, noise tried to pour back in. But silence was faster. It spread across the hallway like a shadow at noon, clean and heavy. People say bruises speak. They don't. Silence does. It counts who looked away. It asks who held a phone instead of a hand. It puts a price on every laugh that wanted to feel safe by pushing someone else under. Amara pressed her tongue to the cut and tasted metal. She took a slow breath. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. Control is a quiet math. Insecurities shouted around her. Be small, look down, make it end. She heard them and did not sign the contract. She kept her chin level. She let the crowd see what real poise looks like when pain tries to rent space. Psychology hook. Bystanders are never neutral. Doing nothing is not zero. It tips the scale for the bully. That is why silence cuts deeper than the bruise. It tells you if your community is real or just a costume. If you've ever felt that mask slip in a crisis, you know the cold that lands in the chest. Blake looked for his usual echo. It didn't come. He tried a smile that broke at the edges. His followers wanted tears for their captions. Amara gave them alignment. The mirror of her calm made the joke look cheap. Interest rose because people are drawn to steadiness. It feels like a door to safety. Fear rose too because steadiness makes cowards visible. A locker slammed. Somewhere a cough. Someone muttered, "Yo, chill," and then pretended he hadn't. Even the lights felt brighter, like a question. She scanned faces, not to accuse, but to remember. Memory is a kind of witness. She would not waste this witness. She spoke once, barely above a whisper. "Remember what you filmed." Not a plea, a directive. The words slid into every pocket, past every case, under each thin excuse. Curiosity sharpened. What would she do next? Would she post? Would she explode? She did neither. She owned her center and let the moment grade everyone standing near it. Issues floated up where anyone could see them. Clout addiction, follower math, the habit of treating harm like content. Amara refused to feed the algorithm with her pain. That refusal is a kind of power most people never practice. Excitement hummed at the edges. A twist was loading. Fear tried one last sale. Go quiet for real, disappear. She rejected it without moving her feet. Then came confirmation, small but solid. A few phones lowered. 2 kids stepped sideways to give her space. One voice said, "That's not funny," and didn't take it back. It wasn't a parade. It was enough. She stood taller by a finger width, and the hallway learned a new rule. Silence can wound, but it can also witness. Today it witnessed her choosing dignity in public. That choice cut deeper than his knee ever could, and the lens could not look away. So, rumors sprinted between periods, changing shoes every hallway. By lunch, Amara's name wore a dozen stories. Some said she was trained. Some said she was trouble. Some said she felt nothing at all. She felt everything. She just knew where to put it. She came from quiet people who did loud things. A grandmother who worked 2 jobs and still ironed dignity into Sunday clothes. An uncle who broke cycles without writing a thread about it. A mother who said, "Keep your breath, keep your feet, keep your name." Family rules, older than Ridgewood, written in rooms with no cameras. You don't need a crowd to be strong. You need a center you can carry. Insecurities multiply in groups. So do lies, but bloodlines carry memory. Memory teaches the difference between fear and danger. Fear is a feeling. Danger is a fact. Measure both, act on the fact. That was the math. It kept her from spending herself on every insult tossed like confetti. Psychology hook. Bullies predict reactions. Cry, run, rage, each feeds their script. Break the script and the show starves. That is why her stillness felt like a trap closing on Blake's swagger. It made him hear his own noise. It made the audience hear their giggles the way a mic hears a nervous cough. At lunch, she opened a small notebook and drew 3 lines. Name the cut, name the crowd, name yourself. She wrote under each in slow, square letters. Naming pain shrinks it. Naming witnesses makes them choose. Naming yourself protects what they can't take. A friend of a friend slid into the seat across from her. "You should go live, hit back." On the edit, tempting, but bait is still a trap when the hook shines. "Not my move," she said. "I don't rent truth by the minute." The words sounded older than her voice. Curiosity gathered like weather. Who taught her restraint in a culture that grades on reaction time? She closed the notebook and stood. The cafeteria tilted. Respect and fear are cousins. Both made room. She walked past the table where Blake's crew sat stacking jokes like plastic cups. They watched her and felt something they couldn't post. Accountability, walking. Justification matters. She wasn't magical. She was practiced. Practice terrifies people who rely on chaos. You can't outshout discipline. You can only try to distract it. At home, a narrow shelf held photos in cheap frames. Uniforms, tassels, church fans from hot summers. Not trophies, proof. Proof that patience bends steel without breaking it. Her grandmother once told her while shelling peas, "Keep your dignity where hands can't reach." She kept it there today. Issues at school looked modern on screens, but their roots were old. Who belongs? Who defines normal? Who gets believed? She would not trade her center for their comfort. She texted herself a promise: hold the line. The truth has long legs, long enough to cross a floor crowded with excuses, long enough to catch up with a boy who thought speed was the same as power. It keeps coming. Up. Blake's brand was volume and angles. He knew where to stand for the front camera and how to tilt for the side one. Confidence by choreography. It worked until it didn't. Today the spotlight felt like sunlight, hot, honest, not interested in his captions. Attention stopped being fuel and started being proof. He looked for Tyler's laugh, for Savannah's steady lens, for the chorus that made him larger than he felt. Tyler grinned on delay. Savannah filmed because filming feels safer than feeling. The crowd orbited out of habit, not loyalty. The leash was on, but he was the one wearing it. Psychology hook. Egos rent courage from audiences. When the interest rate spikes, the costume shows its zipper. Every bully is a borrower. When payments come due, the swagger stutters. People could feel the due date in the air. Say something. He snapped at the circle, trying to jumpstart the echo. A few laughs sparked and died. The mirror of Amara's calm made his noise sound like a child banging pots. The more he moved, the more he looked like he was trying to run from his own face. Insecurities crawled up his neck. What if I'm not the strongest? What if the crown is cardboard? He doubled down the way egos do when afraid. Bigger gestures, thinner threats, a voice climbing stairs 2 at a time. He wasn't talking to her anymore. He was bargaining with the room. Curiosity sharpened. How far would he go to hold a title no one was clapping for? Cameras drifted from Amara's eyes to Blake's hands, from her steadiness to his tells. That is the moment the lens stops admiring and starts auditing. A teacher appeared at the far end, stalled by bodies in doubt. Blake read it as a countdown. He went louder. "Walk away," he barked, as if volume could glue status back together. Amara answered with one sentence that fit in a breath. "You're loud because you're losing." It landed like a gavel. The crowd didn't cheer. They recalibrated. Excitement flipped teams. Hearts sped for consequence. No music, no boom, just the soft sound of a black SUV rolling to the curb outside. Windows reflecting the sky like a closed secret. The hallway felt it the way animals feel weather. Heads turned as if pulled by a tide. Power was arriving without asking permission. Issues stood up too. Entitlement rehearsed as culture. Cruelty subsidized by silence. Adults who treat harm as paperwork. The SUV idled like a rumor with a calendar. Blake's spine wobbled. He checked a camera for comfort and saw sweat where swagger should be. Status panics when the room stops paying rent. Amara did not chase him. She didn't need to. Predators run out of road when the crowd stops paving it. She kept her posture simple, hands loose at her sides, like a truth that isn't trying to sell itself. The audience felt the difference in their ribs. Interest turned into attention. Attention turned into accountability. Then the doors at the entrance clicked, the kind of sound that ends a scene. The hallway flattened into silence again, but this time it wasn't the silence of shock. It was the silence of a stage right before the curtain rises. Blake swallowed and finally understood his problem. He had confused applause with immunity. The bill was due, and he didn't have enough followers to pay it. The SUV didn't blink. It waited. He had run out of echo. Okay. The SUV door clicked open like a period at the end of a long lie. Shoes on pavement, sunglasses off. Badge shown, not waved. No sirens, no theater, just presence. Special Agent Naomi Cole did not raise her voice. The leather case spoke in capital letters for her. Fear moved again. It left Amara, passed through the crowd, and settled on Blake's shoulders like a wet coat. He tried a smirk and found that his mouth had forgotten how. His eyes hunted for jokes and caught a badge instead. Psychology hook. The look that doesn't blink is power with a pulse. It says, "I see you and I won't look away first." Bullies train on flinches. Amara offered none, so the room copied her. Naomi didn't audition for control. She was control. "Who is Blake Donovan?" Naomi asked, even tone, no edges. The question didn't threaten. It promised daylight. A few phones lowered the way hands do near heat. Evidence felt heavier out in the open. Insecurities boiled under Blake's jacket. What if Dad can't fix this? What if the camera is not a shield but a window? He tried to laugh and produced a squeak. "It was a joke," he said, picking the smallest word he could find. Confirmation. The guilty often search for cheaper language. Naomi nodded once, like a surgeon before a cut. "Great. Jokes survive daylight. Let's give yours some." A path opened down the hallway without anyone speaking about it. The room had made a decision. Interest held its breath. Curiosity leaned forward to see what consequence looks like up close. Amara didn't blink. Not at the badge. Not at him. Not at the whispers flitting like birds near the ceiling. She stood the way truth stands, grounded, not loud, not asking to be liked. The fear that had tried to rent space in her ribs packed its bags. Issues didn't evaporate. Schools keep secrets well. But for once the balance favored the target. That matters. It teaches a new reflex. Protect, don't perform. Excitement lost its cruel edge and turned clean like fresh air after a storm. The SUV idled, steady as a metronome, setting the tempo for what came next. Naomi's last sentence landed like a door closing softly. We'll take statements now. No drama, only process. Accountability had the mic, and it didn't need volume. Blake's shoulders dropped. The crowd stepped back to make space for truth to walk through. And in that simple motion, the step, the space, the hush, everyone learned what power looks like when it doesn't blink. Naomi glanced at Amara last, not to test her but to honor her stance. Her look said the hardest part was done. You stayed yourself. The message traveled faster than rumor. It reached the kids who laughed and the ones who froze. Fear found a new target, the habit of doing nothing. That habit felt seen, and it did not like the light. It burned. The threat came first as a whisper. You'll kneel before justice. He didn't mean justice. He meant a staged apology, filmed and shared. Blake wanted a ritual in the same hallway, with the same crowd, the same lens, hungry for shame. He expected Fear to answer. Fear didn't. Not this time. Amara arrived with a face that said she had already counted the cost. Psychology starts in the breath. She owned hers. Hook for every watcher. What if the person labeled prey walks in like a witness? Insecurities flared. If she stands tall, what does that say about me? Interest rose. Curiosity asked, what does justice look like when the bully says the word first? Blake stood where every camera could see him. You'll kneel before justice, he repeated, louder, like a line he didn't trust. His crew spread out to shape a stage. Amara didn't move. She held his gaze the way a lighthouse holds the horizon. Steady, bright, making lies harder. She said, calm, justice doesn't need me on my knees. It needs the truth on its feet. The crowd shifted. Some phones dipped. Excitement sparked. The sharp charge before thunder. Issues rose like old dust. Bias dressed as discipline. Cruelty dressed as tradition. Adults missing at the second they were needed. Blake tried the old play. Make the target small, make the crowd big. Admit you were wrong, he said, and this ends. She blinked once. You hit me. You filmed it. You posted it. That's your record, not mine. Confirmation stung. Truth had a timestamp now. He waved toward the floor. Kneel. The word bounced off lockers and came back thinner. Would she fold? Would he force it? Fear brushed necks. People remembered the knee, the blood, the hush. Amara planted both feet. No, she said, and the no shut a door on years of cheap power. What makes someone refuse the pose that might make danger smaller? Discipline, practice. A bloodline of quiet that teaches how to meet a storm without begging it to be gentle. She let the room watch her not break. The show he wanted could not start without her permission. Excitement flipped sides. The thrill belonged to the turn. A teacher pushed through the ring of bodies and froze. Authority hesitates when it arrives late. It hates to be filmed failing. Blake saw it and pressed. Last chance. Amara's answer stayed clear. You confuse justice with control. They are not the same. The word control changed the temperature. Then came the sound. Tires at the curb, a car door closing with the finality of a period. The black SUV returned, not rumor but clock. Time was up for performances. Fear shifted again, away from the girl he tried to stage and onto the boy who had made himself a headline. Justification mattered. Every witness needed to know why the next part was necessary. Amara gave them one last line. If justice needs someone on the ground, maybe it isn't justice. The sentence landed where knees might have. Even Blake stood still, measuring a new math. His threat, her refusal, the waiting door to consequence. The hallway chose height over spectacle. The whisper that opened this scene lost its teeth in daylight, and the crowd felt taller for hearing it end. They chose to stand tall. The SUV waited at the gate like a full stop at the end of a long sentence. It didn't flash or shout. It arrived the way accountability arrives when it's done asking permission, on time. Engines hum different when purpose sits in the driver's seat. The crowd felt the shift first as a skin thing. Shoulders squared, phones lowered. Hook for everyone watching. What happens when the story grows legs and walks through the door? Curiosity leaned forward. Fear, the honest kind, moved to the person who had earned it. The rear door opened. Special Agent Naomi Cole stepped out with a calm that read as certainty, not threat. Her badge flashed once, then rested. She wasn't here to produce a scene. She was here to end one. Noise looked small next to quiet authority. Blake tried to grin, then remembered how film turns grins into records. "We're good," he said too fast. Naomi didn't answer the words. She answered the pattern. "Who was harmed?" Heads turned toward Amara without anyone telling them to. Insecurities offered her a dozen exits. Let someone else talk, shrink, pass the moment like a hot plate. She declined. "I was," she said, and the sentence held. Issues surfaced in daylight. A school that tolerated spectacle. A crowd trained to document over defend. Adults inching in late. Naomi listened like a ledger. Dates, times, posts, who filmed, who shared. Excitement changed shape. Not the cruel buzz before a punchline. The bright edge before truth lands. The SUV seemed to take notes. Engine steady, windows dim. Blake reached for a softer frame. It was a joke. Confirmation for the watchers. Jokes don't need victims to bleed. Naomi nodded. Then daylight won't hurt it. She told the students, "Save your videos." Evidence feels heavier when it has somewhere to go. A teacher arrived with a policy tone. Procedure, context, misunderstanding. Naomi set one word on top. Assault. Accurate names make strong doors. Blake glanced at the gate like it might lock itself open. He had built his identity with borrowed courage. The lender had arrived. Curiosity asked, what happens to a throne when the stage becomes a document? Amara stood a half step taller, not victorious, just exact. She breathed. She said, "I'll give a statement." Fear looked for a seat and found none. Naomi gestured to the SUV. Paths opened. The crowd became a corridor. Interest followed, not like fans, but like citizens. The engine lowered to a steady hum, like a clock satisfied the hour had arrived. Justification is not revenge. It is alignment. This was alignment. Putting weight where harm happened and light where truth must be seen. The SUV didn't cause justice. It carried it. And when carriage and cause meet at a gate, a campus remembers to stand up straight, speak plain, and move together. Today, Naomi paused at the threshold, not to pose, but to measure the room. Power knows when it meets power. Amara's steadiness wasn't an act. It was a discipline. Blake's volume wasn't strength. It was a habit. Two forces faced each other, practiced calm and practiced noise. Psychology would decide which one the crowd copied. Naomi spoke first, voice even, tempo patient. We do this in order, not for show, for accuracy. When order enters, chaos loses its audience. Hook for the brain. When danger is near, a clear script lowers heart rate and raises truth. She turned to Amara. Tell me what happened, using only what you saw and felt. Amara nodded. He grabbed my hair. He kneed my face, blood, laughter, phones up. I stood, I said no. Time, between classes. Witnesses? Hundreds. Video? Yes. The weight began to move from a person to a process. Blake tried to interrupt. She's exaggerating. Naomi didn't look up. You'll get your turn. Authority that doesn't shout can feel like gravity. Insecurities fluttered through the crowd. If rules are this clear, where do I hide my shrug? Naomi told the students, if you recorded, keep it. If you posted, don't delete. Deleting can look like editing. Accuracy protects everyone. Interest sharpened. People like being told exactly what to do when the stakes rise. A vice principal arrived with a spreadsheet smile. Agent, perhaps we handle this internally. We value community. Naomi glanced at the wall slogans, respect, safety, integrity, then back. Community is healthiest when harm is named and measured. Will help. Issues stepped into focus, image management over safety. Blake's phone flashed Dad. He declined and texted fast. Curiosity pricked the room. What kind of home teaches humiliation as leadership? Naomi kept the center tight. Blake Donovan, he looked up. You're not under arrest. You are being documented. You'll give a statement with a guardian present. The precision left him fewer places to hide. Excitement rose, not bloodlust, relief. Someone was drawing straight lines. Amara's breathing stayed slow. She wasn't being rescued. She was being respected. Hook for anyone hurt. You're not a project. You're a person whose account is being corrected. We'll use a quiet room, Naomi said. After, get water. Adrenaline lies. Hydrate. Half the hallway exhaled. Blake tried again. Can't we just talk this out? Naomi answered with structure. We are. Talking is giving statements. Feelings are welcome. Facts go first. He had never had to line his story up with evidence in public. His shoulders rounded. A teacher cleared her throat. I was there. Thank you, Naomi said. Guilt ran like a mouse under the lockers. It had somewhere to go now. They moved. The threshold became a hinge, the hinge a passage. The SUV waited like a witness. Inside forms water space. The little things make big truth possible. Naomi walked last, giving the room one clean look that said the performance was over, but the record would continue. The crowd felt seen and responsible at the same time. Confirmation wasn't handcuffs. It was the click of a door to a quiet room at the second it should. Power met power, and both chose form over fire. The lesson settled into the building. Next time, fewer phones, faster adults, clearer words. For the first time since the knee, the hallway believed itself capable of better. It felt. The office door carried 3 words in blue vinyl. Respect, safety, integrity. They looked fresh, as if put up yesterday for a tour. A poster warned about bullying in 12 bullets and 0 instructions. Naomi took the end chair, spine neutral. Amara sat across from her, shoulders level. Blake sat with his mother, jaw tight. A vice principal stacked folders, as if straight edges could tidy harm. Hook at the edge of the room. Slogans test themselves when the door closes. If a space can say the right words but can't do the right things, the body knows. Heart rate tells truth before policy. Naomi clicked her pen. We'll record statements, audio on. One person at a time. The vice principal smiled thin. We usually handle this informally. You usually don't have a crowd of witnesses and a universe of video, Naomi said. We'll be thorough. Amara went first. The grab, the knee, the blood, the stare, the words. No adjectives. Facts have their own gravity. Naomi asked short questions. Time, place, who laughed, who filmed, who told her to kneel. Each answer made the room heavier in the right way. Blake's mother tried a softer frame. He's a good kid. This is a misunderstanding. Naomi didn't bite. Good kids can do harmful things. We measure the thing, not the label. Insecurities scratch the corners. If harm has consequences, can love still protect? Yes, love tells the truth faster. The vice principal gestured at the poster. We promote kindness. Naomi glanced at the vinyl words. Promotion is not protection. Issues glared from the margins, slogans as decor, safety as PR. The office hadn't meant to lie, but it had learned how. Blake spoke at last. I said I'm sorry. Naomi's tone stayed even. Your apology goes on the record after your statement. Start with the act. He fidgeted, then described the scene in choppy beats. Every cut he left out appeared in someone else's video. Curiosity pulled the room toward the practical. What happens next? Naomi mapped it. Copies of videos. Written statements. A call to the sheriff's office. School discipline is your lane, she nodded. Criminal law is ours. Amara asked in a soft voice, will this actually matter? Naomi answered plain. Yes, the process is bigger than comfort. And the room saw it. The lens kept it. Confirmation eased her shoulders by a notch. Blake's mother looked at the vinyl words and finally seemed to see them. The slogan stared back like a mirror waiting to be used. Naomi stood. Thank you for telling the truth. Drink water. Eat something salty. Adrenaline tricks people into skipping care. The vice principal blinked, as if care wasn't on his list. It would be now. Justification belongs on paper as much as in hearts. Files began to thicken with things that hold. Names, times, angles, copies. The poster didn't change. The vinyl words didn't change. The office did by a few degrees, the kind that point futures better. Outside, the day kept moving, but inside, the future tilted. Okay rules looked tidy on paper. In the hall, they bent like light through water. The vice principal kept pointing at pages. Naomi kept pointing at facts. Between them stood the shadow of the sheriff's office, not yet in the room, but already on the floor like late afternoon. Hooked to keep every mind awake. Systems are only as good as the people who choose to use them. Insecurities crawled up spines. What if the rule I hid behind turns out to be a curtain? Curiosity asked a hard question. Who benefits when loopholes wear school colors? The policy binder said incidents should be mediated. The law said assault should be documented. The binder offered comfort. The law offered consequence. Naomi chose consequence without raising her voice. We're calling the sheriff. The vice principal smiled the way people smile when their calendar starts to burn. Is that necessary? Yes, she said. Clarity prevents escalation. Blake's friends tried to shrink the frame. It was a prank. They're both fine. Naomi counted elements like she was checking a lock. Intent, contact, injury, recording, distribution. When harm is posted, it keeps happening, she said. It travels. So will the record. A guidance counselor arrived with phrases that sounded safe and solved nothing. Restore the community. Process the moment. Amara listened and finally asked, "Do any of those keep the next girl safe?" The room paused. Issues glared again. Performance over protection. The call went out. The deputy on the line spoke in simple lanes. Document, preserve, advise guardians, avoid coaching witnesses. The shadow on the floor grew darker and cooler, the kind that makes tempers settle. Blake's mother exhaled a long, angry breath. This will follow him. His choices will, Naomi said. So will his repairs, if he makes them. People forget that records can hold growth as well as harm. The office remembered. Curiosity wanted the endgame. Naomi built the bridge instead of guessing the other shore. School discipline here, restitution possibilities here, counseling options here, legal process here. She tapped each spot on a blank sheet and wrote titles. Form beats rumor. Rules in the right hands are shelters. In the wrong hands, they are shields for the loudest. Loopholes exist because comfort has lawyers. The sheriff's shadow erased the wiggle room that comfort loves. The vice principal stopped smiling. He started writing. Amara watched the paper fill with straight lines. No victory pose, no tears, just breath and posture. Her fear didn't vanish. It had somewhere to sit that wasn't inside her chest. That is what confirmation feels like when it is real. Space opens where panic used to be. The deputy arrived and matched Naomi's calm. Two versions of power shared the frame without competing. Statements were scheduled, evidence labeled, parents briefed. The binder went back on the shelf like a book that still mattered but no longer ran the room. Justification closed the loop. The office didn't hide behind process. It used process to put harm in daylight. The shadow thinned as the sun moved. Rules stood up straight. Loopholes shrank under names and signatures. And the building, for once, felt like a place where tomorrow might actually be safer than today. Morning brought paperwork and promises. Naomi logged each clip, each name, each small detail that made a large truth. But at the front desk, a clerk smiled and said a phrase that smells like smoke after a fire. The file isn't in the system. It had been there yesterday. Today it wasn't. People say computers don't forget. People forget to tell computers the truth. Hook for every watcher. When a record blinks, who benefits from the darkness? Amara sat with a cup of water that tasted like dust and waited while the clerk clicked and shrugged. Insecurities crawled up her spine. Maybe this is how stories die. Quiet, polite, without a body to bury. Naomi didn't raise her voice. She asked for the audit log. She asked for the backup server. She asked for the paper trail. The clerk's smile twitched because paper is heavier than spin. Issues surfaced in full color. A building allergic to conflict. A habit of losing what should never be lost. And a culture that loves neat endings more than true ones. Fear tried to sell a shortcut. Let it go. Move on. Heal faster than the process. Amara heard the pitch and set it down. Healing without justice is a bruise under makeup. Naomi called the sheriff's liaison and spoke the sentence that locks doors open. Preserve all related records. The click on the line sounded like a latch finding home. Curiosity gathered around the desk like quiet weather. Could a file actually just walk off? Blake's mother hovered with a lawyer's card and a hopeful timeline. These things resolve, she said. Why make it bigger? Naomi answered with sunlight. Losing evidence makes it bigger. Darkness is what grows stories with teeth. Interest sharpened because specifics matter. Naomi listed them. Timestamps, IP addresses, badge swipes, who printed what, who carried what, and which camera watched the printer door. The clerk swallowed. Excitement, the clean kind, entered with the deputy who arrived holding a portable scanner and a chain of custody form. He greeted Amara first. He greeted the process second. He greeted the excuses last. "We make a mirror," he said. "If the original is touched, the mirror stays." Blake's friends whispered that this felt dramatic. Maybe it did. So does truth after a drought. Amara breathed and kept her seat. This was not theater. This was repairing trust in real time. Confirmation came from a dull place, a storage closet at the end of the hall, where a banker's box waited with 3 initials and an old date. Inside lay copies no one had counted, and a sign-out sheet with a familiar signature. Naomi didn't gloat. She just read the line and handed the sheet to the deputy. Justification clicked into the room. Accountability lives where paper meets pen. The clerk stopped smiling. The liaison on the phone said the right words: understood, preserved, documented. Fear had fewer places to sit now, and so it stood. Amara looked at the box and felt something she could trust more than hope. Not victory, direction. She texted herself 2 words: keep going. Files do not go missing by themselves. People move them, people find them, and now people were watching. The building felt different by 1 degree, the kind of change that points a hallway toward daylight instead of a dead end. Everyone learned a small adult skill with a big impact. Ask for the log, not the smile. Ask for the copy, not the promise. Ask for the door, not the tour. And while the scanner hummed, the story inched forward, pulled by hands that refused to let it slip into the comfortable dark. They said the school newsletter would address the incident. They promised sensitivity, clarity, and names removed to protect privacy. When it arrived, the paragraph spoke in fog. It named behavior with soft corners and forgot the girl who bled. It replaced Amara with a blank shape, a student. Psychology hook. When a system erases a name, it erases a person twice, once from the page and once from the memory that page guides. Amara read the sentence 3 times and felt the familiar twinge. Be grateful they said anything at all. Insecurities love that sentence. It keeps the hurt quiet and the calendar clean. Naomi forwarded the newsletter to the liaison with a simple note. The victim gave consent to be named. Consent is a key that opens a door some buildings pretend doesn't exist. The liaison replied with a policy pace that sounded careful and acted like a shrug. Issues stood up. Privacy used as a shield for image, not as a shelter for people. Amara put her hands flat on the table and said, "Clear. Use my name correctly or don't speak about me." The room went very still. The counselor blinked like someone waking from a nap. Curiosity tilted heads. What happens if the person at the center demands accurate language and offers lawful consent? Naomi nodded. "We will send a correction request, signed by Amara." Blake's circle complained online that attention-seeking was worse than the hit. That's how abusers recruit bystanders, by smearing clarity as drama. Interest found a truer vein. Alumni wrote in, "We remember similar notes, always vague, always tidy, never brave." The principal called a meeting and stacked phrases like sandbags, community, care, unity. Amara listened and then spoke 1 sentence that weighed more than all 3. "My name is not a threat." Excitement rose, this time from parents who wanted the building to stop whispering. "Name the child who was hurt with consent," a father said. "Teach your kids that accuracy is not cruelty. Privacy for minors matters. So does the dignity of being real to the community that failed you." Justification sits between those 2 truths, and policy can hold both if it chooses to. Naomi drafted a correction with crisp edges. Name, date, act, next steps, resources. No diagnosis, no gossip, no blame that reaches past the facts. The newsletter sent an update at 3:14 p.m. It used Amara's name with her consent statement attached. It named the harm and the process. It linked to reporting resources. It apologized for vagueness. Confirmation did not feel like confetti. It felt like a chair finally placed under someone who had been standing too long. Amara breathed differently, not lighter, truer. Children in the next period whispered Amara's name with respect, not rumor. Teachers read the new paragraph out loud, quietly, like a promise to do better. Blake's crew posted snake emojis and lost likes they expected to own. The building learned a real privacy skill. Protect details that expose. Do not erase the person harmed. Names are anchors. Without them, storms carry stories away. With them, communities can tie lines, pull, repair, and stay. The email ping started before sunrise. Local blogs sniffed a scent and followed it to the school's front door. By noon, a headline did what headlines do. It flattened a human into a shape that sells. The clip was everywhere now, sliced, captioned, and thrown to the wolves of the comment section. Hook for anyone with a pulse. What does attention do to a wound that needed care, not clicks? Amara woke to strangers judging her face like a product review. She turned her phone over and felt the room tilt. Insecurity smuggled in dangerous questions. Was I too calm? Was I not calm enough? Did I ruin someone's future by telling the truth? Naomi had answers that stayed inside lanes. You didn't cause the camera. You didn't choose the knee. You told the truth. That 3-line rope kept Amara from falling. Issues burned on every screen. Platforms that reward outrage. Adults who feed their boredom with pain. Teens trained to curate over care. Blake tried to stage his side with a soft focus apology, recorded in a good hoodie under good light. It read like someone else's idea of remorse. The comments split into camps and called it debate. Curiosity inched toward the question that matters. How do we keep the story from eating the person? Naomi set rules. No interviews today, no ambushes. We'll share one written statement that centers facts and resources. Amara wrote it slowly, hands steady, voice plain. She thanked students who came forward. She named harm without naming herself a symbol. She told kids watching to talk to an adult and save the videos. The statement landed like a clean note in a noisy room. Some outlets used it right, others chopped it for spice. That's the math of media, decent people rowing upstream, algorithms hungry for thunder. Excitement tried to sell drama in Amara's DMs. Come on our live, clap back, go viral in your own voice. She chose to let the record be the record. Discipline over dopamine. Confirmation arrived in a quieter metric. The sheriff's office got more tips, not more takes. Parents stopped by the office with forms instead of rumors. A teacher gathered phones and showed a class how to submit evidence. Blake's followers drifted away when the show asked for receipts instead of reactions. Justification for the slow path revealed itself. Care is not flashy, but it makes outcomes that last. Amara ate lunch with 2 friends who asked her about homework before headlines. Her body heard that kindness and loosened by degrees. She answered what she wanted, skipped what she didn't, and kept her name from becoming a mascot. The internet kept spinning as it always does. But inside the building, a small culture shift held: less performance, more process. Less heat, more light. He never liked crowds. He liked corners, code, and clean data. He didn't sit with Blake, didn't sit with Amara, and didn't trust anyone who loved a stage. He watched from the edges and saved things people thought would disappear. When the newsletter shifted, when the file blinked, when the apology video felt like acting, he opened a folder named simply Receipts. Psychology hook. Some heroes don't call themselves that. They just refuse to let lies be comfortable. Insecurities told him to stay out of it. He had a stutter that grew teeth when eyes turned his way. He had a body that preferred quiet routes. He pressed through anyway because math mattered more than nerves. He uploaded the raw clips with timestamps intact, side by side with the edited versions. He wrote a single caption in easy words. Here is the full thing, uncut, with time and date. Save a copy. Curiosity did the rest. Kids compared angles, matched laughs to faces, circled the moment an adult turned around and didn't return. The quiet boy didn't name names. He let video name itself. He disabled comments and pinned links to resources. Issues came into focus. The cut and paste world versus the slow integrity of context. The pull of clout versus the push of proof. Blake's circle tried to discredit him. They called him weird, called him soft, called him everything but accurate. The views kept climbing anyway because receipts are fluent in every language. Excitement found a new current. The thrill of seeing an argument shrink under evidence. Naomi reached out through the school and asked permission to archive the files. He said yes with a small nod and a smaller smile. Amara found him at his locker and said, "Thank you." He shrugged and looked at his shoes. "Truth helps me breathe," he said. That sentence did more for the building than any poster on a wall. Confirmation came in a flood of little acts. More students submitted originals. A parent handed over ring-cam video. A teacher corrected her own statement to match a timestamp. The quiet boy kept posting updates with the same rules. No names, no takes, just time, place, and a link to report harm. Justification for his method was on every screen now. People didn't have to pick a side on vibes. They could follow the line of the day as it happened. The account grew, not noisy but strong, and the culture learned a new reflex. Before you share a take, check the source. The boy stayed in his corner breathing easier while the room learned to do the one hard thing that saves time later: tell the truth the first time. The hearing room was too bright for lies. Fluorescence hummed like a long truth. Chairs faced a table where paper waited in quiet stacks. Naomi placed exhibits in order: original clips, mirrors, logs, sign-outs, the corrected newsletter, the boy's archive with hashes to prove no edits. Hooked to hold every breath. When evidence walks in, stories stop stumbling. Amara sat with a steady jaw and a pen to keep her hands busy. Blake arrived in a suit that fit like a costume. His lawyer spoke first and tried to make the day smaller. Teen drama, misread cues, a teachable moment. Naomi set one page on the table and let it breathe. Timestamp, contact, injury, distribution. The deputy read the chain of custody like a poem with square corners. Issues appeared where everyone could see them. Power that expected a discount, policy that tried to be a pillow, the speed of rumor against the patience of proof. The Quiet Boys folder became Exhibit F. He didn't speak. The files spoke. Insecurities twitched through the room. What if this ruins him? What if we should have kept it quiet? What if we break a life by telling the truth? Amara wrote one sentence on her pad and slid it to Naomi. Accountability is not a wrecking ball. It is a level. Naomi read it, nodded once, and continued. Curiosity turned into understanding as each clip aligned with a witness line. The same laugh matched the same second, matched the same hand. Excitement arrived clean, without edge, when the panel stopped asking if and started asking how to repair. Blake's mother cried softly. It sounded like a person realizing slogans don't do heavy lifts. The lawyer asked for mercy. Naomi did not ask for punishment. She asked for proportion. Apology documented. Restitution set. Counseling ordered. Suspension aligned with harm, not headlines. Confirmation came from the calm at the end, when the room did not explode into applause or rage. It exhaled. The paper was heavier. The air was lighter. Justification closed the circle with specifics. Training for staff who froze, protocols for evidence, a standing rule that privacy cannot erase a victim who consents to be named. Amara stood, not taller, just free by a small measure that meant everything. She thanked the boy with the folder. She thanked the deputy. She thanked her breath for staying when fear tried to rent it. The hearing ended without drama because daylight had done the loud part. Outside, the sky looked ordinary. That was the point. Ordinary days are what justice gives back when it does its job. The room held its breath the way a witness does when the truth walks in wearing a badge. Blake's laugh had gone quiet days ago, but pride still tried to talk for him. The deputy checked the form, checked the time, and asked Blake to stand. The metal glint on the table looked small until you imagined it around a wrist. Hook. If you have ever waited for fairness to stop being theory, you know the ache in the ribs right now. Insecurities prowled the corners. Will this be too much? Will it be too little? Will the world slip back to normal and leave the hurt behind? Naomi said nothing showy. She said, "Hands," and the room understood that accountability uses short words. The click came soft, not like TV, more like a seatbelt locking before a crash. Phones didn't rise this time, eyes did. Issues stood in the light. Power that used to flash a pass, a school that once graded harm as drama, a circle that laughed to feel safe. The cuffs did not answer every question, but they answered one. Harm has a weight. Blake's shoulders felt it. Amara watched without glee. She let relief land as a single breath. Curiosity whispered across the rows. Would he fight, cry, run? He did none. He stared at the floor like a boy who finally heard the echo of his own choices. The deputy read rights in a steady tone. Words fell like steps. You have the right, you have the right, you have the right. Consequence and dignity can share a room when adults choose structure over spectacle. Excitement hummed, not cruel, just bright. This was the part where the building kept the promise it makes in every assembly. Fear tried a last bargain. What if this ruins everything? Confirmation answered, what ruins us is pretending nothing happened. Naomi nodded once to Amara, a small salute to stamina. Blake's mother wiped her face. Love isn't a shield from truth. The best kind of love helps carry it. The cuffs weren't triumph. They were a boundary, a start line painted on clean pavement. The deputy placed a soft hand on a hard shoulder and guided Blake toward the door. The hallway, once a stage, became a corridor again. Students stepped aside the way people do when a parade of facts passes by. No jeers, no victory chants. The sound that mattered was still the quiet click, a tiny hinge closing so a larger door could open. Outside, the sky did not change. Inside, something did. The room remembered how to be a place where safety isn't a poster but a practice. Amara touched the edge of the table and felt the tremor leave her hands in small waves. Not peace yet, direction. She stood, steady enough to help write the next step. The click echoed in memory as a promise. This story will not be buried under noise. It will walk page by page until the harm is named, faced, repaired, and taught forward. This moment is real, measured, and recorded. This moment is real, measured, and recorded. Blake asked for the small room, the one with the humming vent and the water cups that taste like paper. He wanted to talk. Confession arrived wearing careful words. I never meant harm, it was a joke. Things got out of hand. I'm not that person. Consequence sat across the table and kept its back straight. Hook. Every listener knows this game. If the words are soft enough, maybe the facts will blur. Naomi did not let the edges smudge. Start with the act, she said. Then we'll talk about the story. He tried to swap the order. She didn't. He said the hallway was loud, the crowd expected a show, the knee wasn't hard. The video said otherwise. Insecurities leaked through the corners of his sentences. If I sound sorry, can I stay the same? If I cry, will it count as repair? Naomi set the two rails on the table, truth and accountability. Confession tells us what you know, she said. Consequence teaches you who you are willing to become. The room breathed deeper. Issues walked in with them. A culture that likes apologies as content. A habit of treating hurt like a brand crisis. An adult stack of words that dodge the center. Blake gripped the cup. I'm sorry. Naomi nodded. Good. Here's what sorry does next. She outlined restitution, counseling, a written apology with no excuses, community service directed by the victim's chosen charity, training with the team that freezes bystanders. Curiosity leaned in. Would he accept or bargain? He bargained on instinct. Do I have to say it online? You have to say it to the people you harmed, Naomi said. Public may be part of that because you posted the act. But we do not feed the algorithm with your feelings. The quiet boy's archive sat between them like a third witness. Blake's eyes kept drifting to it as if the folders could vote. If I admit everything, he asked, will it go away? Naomi's answer was plain. No, it will move forward. Confession is not a coupon. It is a key that opens the door you still have to walk through. He swallowed. His mother watched the table like a cliff. Amara spoke once, voice steady. You don't owe me a performance. You owe the school a change. The sentence freed her from managing his feelings. Excitement, the clean kind, returned when the plan shifted from theater to tasks. Dates, deadlines, names. Consequence likes calendars. Naomi wrote them in block letters. Counseling started Monday. Volunteer hours logged weekly with signatures. Apology drafted by hand, witnessed by an adult, posted only after review to prevent spin. A training session designed with students who froze in the hall. Blake asked about sports. That privilege is paused, Naomi said. Earn it back by making others safer. He learned a small truth that large egos skip. You don't get credit for the pain you caused. You get credit for the repair you build. Insecurities tried a new angle. What if people never forget? Naomi met it with a truer fear. What if you forget? What if comfort steals the lesson? He looked at Amara, saw no fire and no rescue, only a person steady in her lane. Confession finally reached its honest center. He named the act without softeners. He named the laugh he chased. He named the silence he exploited. The room didn't clap. It moved a checklist forward. Papers slid into a folder. Signatures scratched like small shovels turning new ground. People love the word forgiveness because it sounds like a clean floor after a storm. They forget it is a door you choose, not a mop you hand to a victim. Amara did not wake up ready to forgive. She woke up ready to breathe without flinching. Hook. If you have ever been told to move on by someone who didn't move with you, you know how heavy that phrase feels. Insecurities knocked. If I don't forgive now, am I bitter? If I do, am I weak? Naomi offered a middle sentence that fit in a pocket. You can forgive later. Today, be safe and true. Forgiveness without forgetting is not a loophole. It is a guardrail. It lets you walk the road without stepping off the edge. At school, some students asked for a miracle ending. They wanted a photo, a handshake, A viral clip to prove the lesson landed. Amara gave them something harder and better: boundaries. She said no to staged moments. She said yes to a letter delivered in private and stored with her records. Issues surfaced where kindness gets confused with performance. The counselor planned a circle. Amara asked for time, not to punish, to heal on a schedule that honors bodies. Forgiveness is not a coupon for the person who harmed you. It is a gift you may or may not give yourself when the body is ready. Curiosity watched for signs. Would she soften? Would she harden? Would she disappear into a role the internet wrote for her? She did none. She spoke to freshmen about saving evidence. She asked the principal to add a line to policy about naming victims with consent. She went to class, did homework, laughed once at a dumb joke, and then cried in a quiet bathroom because strong people still leak. Excitement showed up in small ways, sleep lasting an hour longer, benching the urge to search her name. Naomi called just to say she was proud of the boring work. Boring work is how bodies find calm again. Blake started his service hours. She didn't follow. That was part of the boundary too. She wanted him to change, but she didn't want front row seats. People kept asking when she would forgive. She said, "Not today." The words were not a wall. They were a window propped open to a later season. Forgiveness, when it comes, will not erase the record. It will not cancel consequence. It will simply say the debt was paid in ways that taught everyone how to be better neighbors. Until then, forgetting was off the table. Her memory wasn't a weapon. It was a map. It marked where danger hid and where help actually showed up. With that map, she could cross the same halls without giving up pieces of herself to keep the peace. That is the quiet power of forgiving without forgetting. You walk forward with your name intact and your eyes open. This moment is real, measured, and recorded. This moment is real, measured, and recorded. The best apologies become blueprints. The worst become press releases. Amara chose blueprint. With Naomi and a few steady adults, she turned her pain into policy that could outlive her. Hook for every student who has felt small. Rules can be rebuilt by the people they failed. Insecurities muttered that she was too young to change a system. She answered with a checklist. First, evidence protocol. Teachers trained to secure videos without scrolling for gossip. A simple QR form to submit files to a safe drive, and a standing reminder that deleting looks like editing. Second, naming with consent. A script for newsletters that centers the harmed person when they agree, balancing privacy with dignity. Third, bystander drills. Practice for the freeze moment so the next crowd has 3 moves: speak, get an adult fast, preserve proof. Issues came into focus as tasks instead of slogans. The principal stopped hiding behind vinyl words and asked for timelines. Naomi lent a template from another district that worked. The quiet boy joined, building a simple site that taught students how to keep originals safe and verify hashes. Curiosity grew into buy-in. Power feels different when it is shared. Parents signed on. Coaches agreed to stop tolerating jokes that break bodies. The vice principal learned to say assault without wincing. Excitement, the clean kind, spread. Across ordinary days, new signs that actually helped. A teacher who moved faster. A front office that knew where the box of forms lived. Amara didn't become a mascot. She became a co-author. She kept her boundaries, skipped the cameras, and picked meetings that made quiet changes. Justification for each line was simple. It protects the next kid. That sentence unlocked budgets and calendars. By month's end, a new page lived in the handbook with real steps, real names, and real phone numbers that answered. From pain to policy is not a headline. It is a spreadsheet, a training, a habit repeated until it becomes culture. The school still had problems, but it also had a path anyone could walk. This moment is real, measured, and recorded. This moment is real, measured, and recorded. This moment is real, measured, and recorded. The last assembly of the year didn't promise fireworks. It promised chairs, a microphone that squeaked, and a gym that smelled like dust and orange slices. Amara walked in without a script and with a boundary. She would speak once, then let the work speak after. Hook for the heart. Bravery is not the shout, it is the stand. She told the room what she wished someone had told her the week before the knee. Save the video. Name the hurt. Find an adult who moves. Do not kneel to noise that demands your dignity as payment. Insecurities rustled like paper. Some kids feared being targets, others feared losing status. She gave both groups the same assignment: be the person who makes harm expensive. Naomi stood at the back, arms crossed, a small smile that meant pride without ownership. The quiet boy sat 2 rows from the top with earbuds in and eyes open. Issues were not solved. They were surrounded by people who now knew their names. Coaches, teachers, parents, students, each had a line on the new page and a duty with a date. Excitement showed up as a ripple when the principal announced the bystander drill would be part of orientation. A mother in the bleachers wiped a tear she wasn't ashamed of. Blake sat with his team, shoulders lower, service hours logged, apology delivered and archived. Consequence had not ended him. It had begun his repair. Amara did not say she forgave him. She didn't say she didn't. She said she was done carrying his part of the story. That sentence set her down in her own life again. Legacy started small. It looked like a 9th grader emailing a clip the right way. It looked like a teacher standing sooner. It looked like a hallway that remembered how to be a passage, not a stage. She ended with 7 words that fit on a wristband and a wall. Stand up, don't kneel. Start with yourself first. The gym breathed out. Not a roar, a promise. Outside, the sky stayed ordinary on purpose. Ordinary is the prize. Ordinary is kids who feel safe enough to be boring. Ordinary is a school where justice doesn't need a spotlight to work. Amara stepped into that sky, texted her mom that she was coming home, and smiled at the thought that legacy is not what people call you. It is what people can do because you stood. This moment is real, measured, and recorded. This moment is real, measured, and recorded. This moment is real, measured, and recorded.